Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Market Down production. My name is Nick Cummings, joined by Chad Big Bad Johnson and James Gisante. Just wanted to give you a quick update on the whole Vince McMahon sexual assault allegations news that's been in the news for the past few weeks. So a few days ago, the Wall Street Journal put out another report where they alleged that more than $12 million had been paid out to various women to suppress allegations of sexual conduct and infidelity. Apparently, like I said, the payouts reached over $12 million to four different women over a period of 16 years. Of note in particular to us was a former wrestler who alleged that Vince coerced her into giving him oral sex. And then when she refused further advances, he basically buried her down the card and then did not renew her contract when it expired. She then was later given a $7.5 million settlement in order to keep quiet. Vince also apparently gave out $1 million apiece to two other women for their silence as well. One to whom Vince sent unsolicited nudes and sexually harassed, and the other was a woman he began a sexual relationship with after she had been with WWE for over 10 years. And this, of course, on top of the original report where Vince paid out $3 million in hush money for the paralegal that both he and John Laurinaitis allegedly had sexual relations with. Now, obviously, Vince, as we have said in the past, has stepped down as chairman of the board. He was replaced temporarily by Stephanie McMahon. The board's independent investigation continues. The law firm they hired to do so is continuing to do that. And there was also a report from SRS that after the initial Wall Street Journal report, that Vince, after appearing on TV, came back to Gorilla and started yelling out, "Fuck him." So, James, obviously a lot there, a lot to digest. This just seems to be getting worse and worse, both for Vince, but just, as a story in general, and just the ickiness of it all. It's obviously a very bad situation for all parties involved.
No, absolutely. I've seen a lot of people make light of the situation, and I think it's because people are connecting Vince to his Mr. McMahon character. And this isn't a fun situation. This isn't a funny situation that should be joked about. This isn't a funny situation where, oh, that Vince, it sucks. An old, powerful, rich man used his power and his money to sexually harass a bunch of women. And that sucks. That really sucks. And, at this point, we only know what's been said and what's been reported, but there are certain things that are undeniable, and that's Vince has paid off women because of things that he's done with them. And, how consensual these things were is, it's very gray because he's their boss, there is an imbalance of power there, and it's in this instance very unforgivable. The fact that people's jobs were on the line because he was horny, how much does that suck, and it's crazy. Can you imagine being paid off that much money? And it's a nothing thing for this guy. It's nothing for him. So I don't know. It sucks. I'm not surprised. I don't think anyone's really surprised. I don't think anyone's really shocked. And it goes back to this Mr. McMahon character and how powerful that character is, because all we ever heard for years was Vince is not the Mr. McMahon character. That's all he kept saying. I am not Mr. McMahon. That's just a character I play on TV. But hey, guess what? The character you play on TV doesn't seem that far off from the guy you are in real life, apparently. So I don't know if this is the end of the story. I don't know if there's more to come. It's very possible because, you know, once the breadcrumbs start to appear, you just got to keep following them, and who knows what else you'll find. But it's already bad. I feel bad for the women involved, and you know, I don't know if we want to share the names of the potential women. I don't particularly want to, especially because nothing is confirmed.
Yeah, that's
But
all. It seems to me it'll be internet speculation and
yeah,
you know Reddit sleuths trying to figure out who was released around this time and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, no one's sure who any of these women are. In particular, the wrestler who received the one settlement. So
yeah.
I would think we err on the side of caution and
I
not
yeah.
mention the rumored
I
name.
I'd prefer that too. I don't know. I don't know what happens from here. I don't know if I think the closest we've seen Vince McMahon ever losing WWE was in the 90s with the steroid trial. You know, I think that's the closest we ever saw to Vince McMahon losing the company. And I think we're in that territory again, but he got away with it in the 90s. And I know that a lot of investors, a lot of people in WWE are afraid to lose Vince because he's the reason the company is as big as it is. And I've heard that from investors. Like I've heard that being reported about investors and people talking to networks saying, you know, if Vince goes, we don't know what the value of this company will be. So that is so secondary. You know, the wrestling aspect of this is so secondary to all the potential criminal charges that, I mean, I don't know if I think the statute is probably up on a lot of them, but it sucks how much of a storm like this cluster fuck it became, and Vince is probably going to get away with it again.
Yeah, there's a lot to the business side of this, the wrestling side of this, and I'll get to that I think in a bit. But in terms of the lack of surprise, I would say that came with all of this that you mentioned. When this all started bubbling to the surface, a lot of the old Vince stories started coming out. And I think, like you said, like some of it, you know, some of the lack of surprise is the Mr. McMahon character and how we sometimes have trouble separating, you know, that character from the real life person. But there is enough in real life Vince's past that I also think lends itself to us not being insanely shocked that this has come out. There is a very credible rape allegation against Vince McMahon from, I believe it was the 80s, where the first female referee in WWE has accused Vince McMahon of raping her. So this isn't the first time Vince has been accused of something like this, Chad. And now I think because of the money aspect of it and the fact that it is impacting the business, it's becoming a much bigger story than it had been in the past.
Right. This is such a loaded situation. I feel like James said, I feel like we all knew, like if we did a show of hands of anybody who saw this on 2022's bingo card, I'm sure all of us would raise our hands. Like, this is not surprising at all. Allow me to sound old for a minute. Do you guys remember Lamb Chops Play Along?
Yeah,
at all?
this is the song that doesn't end.
This is the song that never ends. I mean, it's the floodgates are open now. I feel like everything, well, not everything because Vince is Vince, but it's only going to get worse. But in hindsight, he bought the E in entertainment, and he's gonna just dash this away as TV. And then the goal of him to go backstage and yell "fuck him," that shows his stance. It obviously he's gonna get away with this again, as he's done since the 80s, like you said. I mean, it's terrible. I'd like to take a moment to really shout out the victims and, you know, say that my prayers and well wishes are with you guys, or you women, because this is disgusting. And I feel like we're desensitized to the point where everybody's making jokes and it's memes on Twitter, where this is not okay. It'll never be okay. It should not be deemed okay or looked at as okay. And Vince is a piece of shit. He needs to go down for this. He won't, but I mean, one can hope.
I do think there is a chance he goes down for this, but I think a lot of things have to happen. And I think it's going to end up being because of a lot of outside pressure. Because there was a very good article the other day in Sports Illustrated about this story. And I thought it brought up some very good points. One of them being at a certain point, because he was chairman of the board, but depending on what happens, if everything surrounding this becomes such a hindrance to the company financially, whether it be sponsorships dropping out or perhaps NBC or Fox decides to pull out of their deal because it's such a bad look for them to continue to air WWE programming. If stuff like that begins happening, both Vince and the board have a fiduciary obligation to the investors to get Vince out of there. So I don't think anything's gonna happen to Vince legally, but I do think there is a chance that if there is enough public pressure, Vince will end up having to leave. Now, I don't know how that happens in terms of, is it just,
I mean,
he's off the board, or is he fully out? Like, because he's
realistically,
creative.
Exactly. Like, he stepped down, and who got put in his place? His daughter. The man, even if he is not going to be in charge, he's going to be in charge. He's a billionaire. He's not doing this for the money anymore. He does it because this is who he is. So he's going to get to keep doing it. And yeah.
Unless it starts losing them money, I think.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, even if he's not officially in charge, he's still his hands in charge.
Yeah, his fingers will always be
exactly.
Everything.
Like, there's no stopping that.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I like, to a degree, what I was saying about him being outed is more or less only on paper. Like you said, I would agree with that. It sucks. Like, you can't get him out in full, but I think that's at best what they're going to have to do. And granted, again, to this Sports Illustrated article, Vince has set up the company to run without him. Nick Khan has come in and he's done, depending on how you look at the wrestling versus the money, he's done a good job. The company is set up to run without Vince. And obviously at some point, even though I'm still pretty much convinced Vince is immortal, like at some point the company will have to run without him. So if that ends up happening now or later, or whatever it is, then so be it. I did want to bring up one more note from the article because I thought it was very interesting. Obviously, somebody on the inside of this investigation is the one leaking this to the press. I guess in particular the Wall Street Journal. And the point the article brought up was that person, the author, whose name I can't remember, and I apologize to them. The author, and now I am very curious as to that board member's motivations. Are they trying to get Vince out by leaking this stuff and trying to, include public pressure to force him out of there? Or is there some other ulterior motive? We don't know. It is very curious, the idea that, and the fact that all of this is coming out now, as Vince has set the company up to run without him, as he gets older, as a lot of people accuse him of being out of touch, product wise. There's a lot there that I'm very interested to see how this plays out. Because if that is somebody's motivation to get Vince out, this is a hell of a way to do it.
But as James said, does he ever really get out? I mean, in hindsight, allow me to be a dick for a moment. Even in death, he's going to be a legend. Like, he's going to be this iconic figure to the point where I don't think any stain is big enough for this company to be like completely ruined. And as you said, I mean, we can say what we want. Vince is ahead of the PR curve and has been since the 80s. He's going to let his daughter do everything. Everybody's going to look at her and say, you know, the power of women, women empowerment, and it'll brush all of this shit over. Like, I don't see a way that this runs without him. Well, I don't see a way where he has this run without him.
That's fair. But I think then the question becomes, you know, is Vince McMahon WWE, or is WWE, you know, a bigger than Vince? Like, who's bigger here, the company or the person?
The company is going to be bigger and is bigger than Vince, but the company will always be linked to Vince.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, the company being bigger than him, could they then? No, you obviously can't erase Vince McMahon. It's impossible. He's intrinsically tied to this company forever. But, you know, as time goes on and we move further and further away from Vince, whenever that eventually does end up happening, like, could you low key bury some of, you know, bury not him in general, but just like low key push him to the side the way they have people in the past? I don't know. I mean, it's a very hypothetical situation to which we don't have all the answers to, but I think it's definitely just interesting to talk about. And like I said, I'm just interested to see what happens, because all of this stuff is obviously being strategically leaked to some end.
But even without him, I think it would just be so complex to disassociate him, because again, if he doesn't run it, then we get Stephanie. If we don't get Stephanie, I would assume we get Shane. If we don't get Shane, we get Triple H. So, I mean, it's like, where can we go? If we don't get Triple H, we get Laurinaitis, and he's under fire as well. Like, I don't know where we go where it's not touched by Vince. It's like,
I do think a lot of people who are currently employed in the higher ups will probably be gone when Vince is gone. Laurinaitis probably included, but
Kevin motherfucking Dunn.
But that was so spot on. But yeah, whoever ends up running, I think, well, Nick Khan is obviously a big deal there as well. So he, I think, will end up in a pretty solid position of power. So it won't just be the McMahon family and, you know, and company. I think there'll be a bit of an overhaul. I obviously think that the McMahons will always have some foot in the door at WWE, whatever it is, whether it's just stock options or they actually, you know, continue to run the place. But I think Vince leaving will amount to some change. So there is that. But this is, you know, obviously a developing story. It's been developing now for over a month. So the next time another large piece of news like this breaks, we'll definitely do our best to cover it here on the Market Down podcast. I want to thank everybody for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. We have a really cool episode this week where James and I interviewed indie wrestler NXZN. It was a lot of fun. You learn a lot about life as an indie wrestler and coming up in the business like that. And it's really cool. I highly recommend it. So for Chad Big Bad Johnson and James Gisante, my name is Nick Cummings. Thank you again so much for watching, and we'll see you here next time on the Market Down podcast. Have a good one, everyone.